Here we are. Okay.
It's hard. See, maybe it's okay. It should be like. Oh. Hope it stays like. Yeah. Okay, maybe it's
Is
okay.
it? Oh, sorry.
No niin, hei, lämpimästi tervetuloa kaikille aloittamaan STIn syyskautta myös. Tervetuloa kaikille etäosallistujille ja aika mukavaa, että meillä on tässä aika täynnä jo tää sali ja haluan sanoa, että jatkossakin kun luontoja on, niin mielellään tervetuloa myös tänne paikan päälle. Eli meillä on usein suuri seuraajajoukko tuolla streamin ääressä, mutta tosiaan tänne Kaisaniemenkatu 4 saa tulla paikan päällekin seuraamaan näitä meidän luentoja. Mä olen Haverisen Soilija täällä STIssä pääsihteerinä ja sanon jotakin asioita liittyen tähän tämän syksyn ohjelmaan tässä alkuun. Ja itse asiassa mä laitan tästä nyt tänne liikkeelle ensinnäkin tämmöinen STEP-opintokeskuksen osallistujalomake. Saadaan STEP-opintokeskukselta tukea näiden luentojen järjestämiseen, niin tämmöinen siis tehdään anonyymisti, mutta kuitenkin tietoja kerätään. Ja sitten on tämmöinen meidän oma lista, eli jos voidaan sinne tietosi. Jos
Eli otetaanko tästä niinku yksi lomake?
Joo, yksi lomake ja se täytetään. Siinä on varmaan vain yksi kynä nyt kiertämässä. Mutta jos jostakin löytyy lisää tai itsellä on, niin se helpottaa varmaan nopeuttaa. Joo. Tästä alkaa ST-syksy ja heti huomenna tapahtuu lisää. Nimittäin huomenna täällä on uusien opiskelijoiden iltapäivä. Kello 16 alkaen, mutta ennen sitä on jo luterilaiset klassikot luento. Pasi Palmu pitää Saksasta käsitteen tänne Huijärtsin Kalliopohjakirjasta. Kannattaa tulla paikan päälle, koska me sitten laitetaan se tallennus vasta jälkikäteen nettiin, eli paikan päälle kannattaa tulla tänne huomenna. Päivähartauden ja kahvin jälkeen 14.30 alkaa se. Ja tänä syksynä on tulossa uusi Justitia-kirja. Numero 40 meidän Justitia-sarjassa 3.9. on sen julkaisutilaisuus täällä ja oikein juhla. Ja tosiaan kannattaa, jos haluat paperilla katsoa ehkä netistä, niin tämmöisiä ohjelmia löytyy täältä. Ja sitten meillä on tulossa eklesiologian luontosarja, joka alkaa ensi keskiviikkona. Professori Antti Laato aloittaa sen vanhan testamentin seurakunta, että miten vanha testamentti puhuu seurakunnasta. Ja siitä lähtee käyntiin. Ja sitten meillä on lisäksi itse pidän luomisen teologiasta lyhyen 4 kerran sarjan. Vesa Ollilainen pitää Johanneksen evankeliumista. Ja ensi tiistaina alkaa myös ensimmäisen vuoden opiskelijoiden fuksifoorumi. Eli tämmöinen, jossa sitten erityisesti opintoja aloittaville on eväitä. Mutta tutustukaa ihmeessä. Sen lisäksi on monenlaista muutakin tapahtuu, mutta täältä löytyy lisää. Pidetään rukoukseen ja sen jälkeen mä esittelen sitten meidän tämän päivän vieraan ja siitä eteenpäin. Rukoillaan. Pyhä Jumala, rakas taivaallinen Isä, kiitetään sinua siitä, että sinä olet kaiken hyvän teologian lähde ja meillä on mahdollisuus siitä oppia aina lisää. Ole sinä siunaamassa tämä STIn alkava syyskausi. Siunaa erityisesti nyt kaikkia uusia kandidaatin ohjelman opiskelijoita, jotka täällä on aloittanut yhteistyössä Fjellhaugin kanssa. Siunaa kaikki syksyn ryhmät ja luennot ja kaikki, jotka tänne STIlle tulee. Kiitetään nyt erityisesti Frank-Ole Thoresenista, joka tänään meille opettaa täällä meidän vieraanamme. Kiitos tästä yhteistyöstä Fjellhaugin korkeakoulun kanssa ja kiitos, että sinä johdat tätä työtä eteenpäin. Ja meitä kaikkia siunaamaan. Jeesuksen nimellä. Amen. And now our guest, Frank-Ole Thoresen. We are so happy to have you here. And we are extremely happy about our cooperation and this new bachelor's program, and it wouldn't have happened without you, so you have been very central here, and so happy that you are our guest here today, and also what you will have to say to us about mission, and we can learn about that. But before I let you here, I have something for you. It's hidden here. We these are like a bit obsessed with our best in the world chocolate. Yeah. So we just had to buy you some. So here, celebrate. It's really like this is time for celebration, and also because if you eat a lot of chocolate, you need to drink some water. So we have this special STI water bottle. Here is this kind of warning that who drinks this water will thirst again, but that who drinks the water that Jesus I give will never be thirsty.
Will never thirst, right?
Yeah, so from Jesus, as you know.
Wonderful. How nice. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, I will try not to eat the chocolate during the presentation.
We know it's hard.
Yeah, it is. It's hard. The Finnish chocolate is very nice. That's true. So it's a pleasure to be here and to see you all. Also for me, I mean, the cooperation between the STI and FIUC, Fjellhaug International University College, has been prepared for quite some time now. I think it was maybe 4 years back that we first started discussing with VESA what could be possible to do in Finland, and later on I'll also introduce you a bit more to our institution. But let me first introduce myself. Yeah, I am rector of Fjellhaug International University College. I've been a missionary. So I've worked and lived in Ethiopia for 8 years, working particularly among Muslims, the Somali population, and you have quite a few Somalis here in Finland as well. So I've much of my background is within missiology. And my formal PhD is also within missiology. So I teach mission strategy, Islam, and some of these subjects in our institution. Even though I don't have time to do that much teaching anymore, to be honest. But that's my background. That's where I come from. I'm married, 4 kids. And they are growing up. So the smallest one, she got married this summer. So we had a wonderful celebration for her. Yeah. So our life is changing as our kids are growing up. The topic that I am to talk over today is the term polycentric mission. And the reason why I chose this topic, or we agreed that I should do this topic, was that I was challenged to do a paper in an academic journal in Norway on this topic. What is polycentric mission or polycentric Christianity? And the reason is that we're doing this academic journal is doing an issue on the Lausanne movement and the big conference that was in Seoul last year in South Korea. And in the Lausanne movement, this has become kind of a new catchphrase. It's the new popular kind of label on mission and Christianity, polycentric Christianity. And so I started delving into what is actually, what does this mean? What does this term indicate? And what you could say is that polycentric basically means multiple centers, right? There are many centers. And to be honest, when you think about the church, when you think about the history of the church, there is really nothing new about polycentric Christianity. Christianity has always been polycentric. You could say that the church has always been on the move. If you compare it to, for instance, Islam, Islam that was kind of established in Saudi Arabia, on the Arabian Peninsula, and within a short period of time, it grew kind of expansively. And if you look back at the history of Islam, you can hardly find any countries, any areas that has first been Muslim and has stopped being Muslim, kind of where the majority has been Muslim, where the majority is not Muslim anymore. There are very, very few areas where that is the case, if any. Maybe it will change for the future. I mean, there are Muslim areas where the church is growing rapidly at present, but I mean, it's you don't have many examples of that. But if you look at the church, the Christian church has kind of always been on the move. It has been established, it has grown in some areas, and then facing persecution, discrimination, it has diminished, and it's grown again in new areas. So in the beginning, or in the early years of Christianity, we remember, of course, that the church had a strong presence in Turkey, in Northern Africa, in Egypt, and later on it's become a minority in those areas. So just to kind of show you a brief 2 minutes, 2 minutes where we run through church history in 2 minutes. I've included this small video to show you how the church has grown and diminished up through the history. So let's see if this works. And is there sound on this now? Do you know if the? Let's see. Yeah, it is. So here you see the time up there, or the timeline. So growth of Islam, the green area. Tang Dynasty in China. And then you see the Mongol Empire. And when we reach the age of Reformation, you see that the church was geographically almost on its most limited. Time of mission from 18th century and forward. So this is kind of a simple presentation, but it illustrates the point, right? That the church has grown and it has diminished, it's faced challenges and grown again in new areas. So the church has always been polycentric. There is nothing new, so to speak, in that sense. But what is interesting, if you look behind those numbers, in international mission movement, we tend to talk about the global north and the global south. And you could discuss those labels as well. How good are they? But if you look through history, you could say that the first 1,000 years from year 0 till around year 1000, the majority of Christians were living in the global south, in the southern part of the world. And then we have now had about 1,000 years where the majority has been living or has been in the global north. And then around 1980, again, this shifted towards the global south. So that the majority, about 1980, shifted again towards the global south. So when we talk about the center of the church moving southwards, that's also not something new. This is something it's for the last 40, 50 years the center, if you talk about the numbers, has shifted southwards. But if we then, okay, we could say that, well, we've seen that the numbers, the church has been polycentric. It has been present all over the world and moved around from time to time. If we then move to 1910, about the beginning of the last or the 20th century, the case was that more than 80% of the Christians in the world were living in Europe and North America. So 100 years back, more than 80% of the Christians in the world were living in Europe and North America. So it means that 100 years back, Christianity was almost a Western religion. And if you compare to the kind of the global distribution of people, we would have to admit that 80% in the West, that was not a kind of a global church. But if we move 100 years later on, to 2010, about 60% of the Christians globally were living outside of Europe and North America. And the last numbers are those I've put out here, shows that about 70% of the Christians in the world are at present living outside of Europe and North America. So we could say that the past 100 years has been an amazing time for mission. The past 100 years, the church has gone from being a global, a Western church, a Western religion, to a global church. And so we could in many ways say that when it comes to mission, there has been kind of a Western hegemony. And that you've probably all heard this, that mission used to be from the West to the rest. Kind of the mission was the Western world bringing Christianity, or the Western church bringing Christianity to the world. That statement could definitely be challenged, because later research has shown that basically all around the world, when Western missionaries came and were involved and started mission, there were local Christians working together and carrying much of the burden. And it's not the case has never been that it was Western missionaries who kind of were the ones who were who were kind of the central preachers of the gospel. They were always working with local Christians and local churches around. And you will even find that there were remnants of old churches who participated in areas where the gospel grew and so on and so forth. But still, when 80% of the believers were from Europe and North America, of course, most of the missionaries would have to come from Europe and North America. So the Western hegemony, you could say, was obvious just from sheer numbers. It had to be a Western hegemony in mission. Yeah, we can come back to the kind of the post-colonial perspective in these things. But in the mission movement, the terminology has kind of has shifted, so to speak. The term "from the West to the rest" kind of was established as a phrase for criticizing the Western hegemony in a way, criticizing that the West dominated the mission movement. And about maybe 20 years back, 30 years back, the new paradigm kind of that was raised in the international mission movement was that we have to move kind of away from the understanding that mission is from the West to the rest, and we have to move into an understanding of mission where mission is from everywhere to everywhere, that mission moves across the world in every direction. And that has kind of been the dominating phrase that has been used for describing the international mission movement, that mission is from everywhere to everywhere, or from everyone to everywhere. But that is actually not the truth either, because as we know, there are about or more than 3 billion people in the world who are among the unreached people groups that do not take part in this picture. So the phrase "from everywhere to everywhere" doesn't really cover the situation. The truth is that a big part of the world does not take part in kind of in mission as such. And we'll come back to this, but the interesting thing here as well is that you can see that there are about 450,000 international missionaries at present. 450,000 who are long-term missionaries sent by a church or mission organization to cross borders and to bring the gospel into other areas. And that number is growing all the time. The numbers of missionaries, international missionaries, is growing faster than the world population. And so we talk about now 450,000, but the interesting thing is that only about 15,000 are working among these 3.3 billion people that are the least reached, that are the unreached. Whereas about 435,000 are working in areas with strong churches. This illustration shows that yes, there are lots of international missionaries. There is a lot of mission work going on, but they are not going to areas where they are most needed. From 2012-13 onwards, the new phrase polycentric came in as kind of a contrast or kind of a new phrase in the mission movement that replaced kind of the from everywhere to everywhere phrase. So now the phrase shifted to polycentric mission. And that is probably now the most used phrase in the mission movement, that mission now is polycentric. And in 2016, this book was written by Alan Yeh, and where the term kind of was developed and used extensively. Polycentric mission. And in the Lausanne movement, are you familiar with the Lausanne movement? Yeah? Yep, good. In the Lausanne movement, connected to the huge conference in Seoul last year in South Korea, there was developed a huge new mission document that was called State of the Great Commission. That kind of describes what is the state of the Great Commission at present around the world. And in that big document, polycentrism was again a central phrase. Polycentric global mission, understanding polycentric mission. So during later years, this is the new term that has kind of taken over to kind of define what mission is. It is now polycentric. And that raises the question, well, what does this term actually mean? Where does it come from? And when I started to look into this phrase, I realized that polycentrism is a phrase that comes from a secular theory, from philosophy, and the scientist and philosopher Michael Polanyi was the first philosopher who kind of developed this phrase, polycentrism. He worked on research, and he said that the best way to do research is in a polycentric system, where you don't have kind of a strong leadership deciding methods and deciding frames and how you should do things. The researchers should be free to do their own research, and they could use it. They should work in different centers with different groups and so on and so forth. So that's where it came from. And later on, this term has been developed to become a word describing political theory, kind of a contrast to more communist, socialist systems with a strong central authority. There should be many centers. It has become part of urban planning, social sciences, way of planning how communities could be developed, and so on and so forth. So it is a term that is used in many different ways, and it has kind of a history, and central characteristics of this term is that the objective is to increase gain, increase output. So you could see from financial theory, kind of to increase the output, increase gain. The gain should be reached by some means. Those are multiple and differentiated actors. It's a good thing when many different actors participate together, that they compete against each other. Duplication is good. Overlapping is good. It's kind of a multiplicity, a term that kind of opens up and invites multiplicity, multiple decision centers that are independent of each other, various actors that complement each other. And yet we would say that in polycentrism there are some hidden patterns that create order in this material. So we don't need to go deep into this, but the point is to say that this is a word that comes from secular theory. And the word has just been kind of introduced into mission. The challenge is that you have just taken a secular phrase with a kind of a meaning and a definition, and use it in a Christian setting without redefining it, without defining it, without clarifying what does it mean. So when I started reading this book, I soon realized that, well, the phrase, you have here a big book talking about polycentric missiology, but there is no definition of what polycentric is. So that's the main phrase, the main term that is used in this book. It just doesn't say what it is. And the closest thing you find is that polycentric missiology carries kind of a symbolic contrast. A century ago, mission was unilateral and unidirectional from the West to the rest. Today, in light of the phenomenon known as world Christianity, mission is polycentric and polydirectional from everyone to everywhere. So it just says that, well, it is in a contrast to what it used to be when mission was from the West to the rest. At present, it is everything, kind of. It goes every way. But that is not really a definition of a term that can be, a phrase that can be used and is very helpful for us. Also within the church, we soon see that the term polycentric has become a hierarchical conceptual system. It's grown to become a term that's used in many different ways and in many different settings. You have polycentric Christianity, which is kind of on the top, and then you have polycentric mission, and you have polycentric mission leadership, and polycentric resource mobilization, polycentric mission structures, polycentric training for mission, and all of these terms are used in the mission movement, but it's very difficult to know what is it actually telling us? What is it saying? What does it mean? A person called Jay Matenga, who is General Secretary of the World Evangelical Alliance, he is one of the few who has criticized this development and says that this introduction of this term doesn't actually make any sense. It doesn't bring anything new. It's just a kind of a catchphrase. Jehu Hansiles, who is a very famous church historian, he has said a long time ago that the globalization of Christianity was decidedly polycentric in the way that it was never Western. Mission was never Western. Mission always worked together with Christians across the world, and that. Kind of the Western mission historical or the Western mission story has, of course, always focused on the Western missionary, and that's not so strange. I mean, those of us coming from mission movements, mission organizations, we are, of course, used to mission history focusing on the Western missionary, the Finnish missionary. What are the Finnish missionaries doing? And that makes sense, because that's what the readers in Finland want to know, want to hear about. But the picture has always been much broader than the Finnish or the Norwegian missionary. So the modern research is challenging more and more this picture that the Western missionary was the center of everything. If we then look at the state of the Great Commission, this this document that was developed for the Lausanne huge conference in Seoul. How is the term used in that document, which is now kind of the main mission document for the evangelical church? Well, in the same way, there is no real definition for what polycentrism means. It is a word that's used kind of to describe plurality. Recent decades have seen phenomenal changes as missionary work has become a wonderful mosaic of peoples, cultures, flavors, sounds, and much more. That is kind of what polycentrism is described as in the state of the Great Commission. So again, it doesn't really say anything more than that the church is manifold. It's plural. Things are happening across the world in many ways. And when this document is to present polycentric changes at present, there is a chapter describing what are the polycentric changes taking place at present. Well, it identifies 3 topics. There is increased cooperation going on. There is more contextual education. And there is more focus on mental health issues. And it's a bit difficult to know why are these 3 topics picked? What are they? Are they kind of the most central thing to polycentrism? And likewise, when polycentric opportunities are described, the document says that the opportunities raised by polycentrism are intercultural research, migration as mission, people migrating across the world and bringing the gospel with them, and distribution of resources between the rich and poor. Again, all of these issues, all of these topics make sense. They may be important, but the question is why? Why are these topics picked? Why do they focus on these topics? Well, that's not obvious. Couldn't there be other? Probably most researchers would say that, well, there are other topics that could be more at least as important or more important. So the whole phrase polycentrism is a very difficult phrase to use the way it is used now without any clear definition. So I have tried to look through all the literature or most of the literature that has, from an academic perspective, used this term polycentrism, and tried to identify what do they agree on are central topics of polycentrism. And I've identified 5 main topics that could be said to define what polycentrism is. And the first one is the issue of shared objectives, that there are some objectives that those involved share together and agree upon. The second is freedom from established structures and authorities. The third one is diversity. The first one is collaboration. And the 5th one is internally shared learning and rectification, kind of learning together, improving together. And these are kind of the 5 main themes that could be defined to say that if this is what polycentric mission is about. And I thought that we will stop with the first, we don't have time to go through all of these, but we'll stop with shared objectives and kind of discuss that together, or see what does that mean for mission, and what does it mean for the Western Church and Western mission. If we take a step back, the 1960s were a time of crisis for the international mission movement. For those of us in the Nordic countries, we would think that, well, it was totally different, because the 60s were kind of it was a time when the organizations recruited lots of missionaries and the organizations were strong. But internationally, the 1960s was a time of crisis. It was a time where, with the growth of communism and atheism internationally, it was at the end of the colonial age, with the strong growth of nationalism across the globe. And it means that in many mission contexts that had been colonized before, you had this nationalistic movement also in the churches that had been established, and many of the churches kind of wanted to or argued against mission, because Western missionary was part of kind of or were identified with the colonial project, and so the Western mission and Western missionaries were strongly criticized as being part of kind of this colonial project. Just as reflection on that as well, we could say that, well, mission has strongly been criticized for being part of kind of the colonial project. But the truth is that history is much more complex than that. And hardly there were any voices that were as critical to the colonial powers as the mission movement. It's true, of course, that many times missionaries were too closely connected to the colonial project. But that was kind of mainstream thinking in the Western world at the time. But also many times, and there are lots of examples of the missionaries being the critical voices against the colonial powers and colonial project. So mission was at this time, in many senses, identified with the colonial project, cultural imperialism. You had international conferences where missionaries were told to go home, and so on and so forth. And then you had the growth of the more liberal theology and theology of religion, where it was argued that God was present in every religion, and so why should we do mission? And also the issue of many paths to religion, so that the whole argument that mission was important was kind of undermined during the 60s. And the answer from the evangelical church was the Lausanne movement that was established in 1974, which kind of re-emphasized the central aspect of Christ as the way, the truth, and the life, that there are no other paths to salvation, that we as Christians have been commissioned to go, that we have a message to bring, and that mission is compulsory for us. And as part of that, the church growth movement emphasized strongly the issue of people groups and the people group strategy, namely that the Bible has a focus on people groups and the focus that all people groups should have access to the gospel. So from the very beginning, the Lausanne movement has had a strong focus on the unreached people groups. And so we could ask, what does the polycentric theory and polycentrism term mean for mission to the unreached people groups? This central aspect of the Lausanne movement. Well, we could, the mission, the people groups aspect were emphasized in 74, and then in Manila, the next big Lausanne meeting in 1989 emphasized the 1040 window. And I expect that you are familiar with that. If you make a window 10 degrees north of equator and then 40 degrees north of equator and make such a window, then you'll find about 80% of the least reached people groups in the world within that window, within that frame. So that focus on the least reached people groups and the 1040 window has been central to the Lausanne movement. Yeah, we could just we could add that, well, what is going on in mission theology? I'm sure you've heard the term missio Dei, and missio Dei kind of says that, well, mission is not something that is our responsibility. It's not something that the missionaries do or the Christians do. Mission belongs to God, and in some circles it has been developed in such a way that basically everything the church does is mission. You could say that, well, God has sent the church to the world, and therefore we are all missionaries and we are all taking part in mission, and everything the church represents and does is mission. And to some extent that is true. To some extent, kind of being Christians in the world is part of God's great mission. But the problem is, if you use this term in such a way that there is no need for mission, for the church's mission anymore, for crossing borders, for bringing the gospel to the least reached, for being involved in missionary work, in mission. There is, even though in many senses the missio Dei is kind of used to replace the church's mission, there is no theological argument for that. Well, the case is that, as I said earlier on, there is an increasing number of missionaries, international missionaries around the world, but only 3% work among the least reached. So this is what I showed you earlier on. 450,000 missionaries, only 15,000, only 3% work among the least reached people groups. How about then the Western involvement in this? Yeah, I think many of us have heard for decades now that Western mission is kind of bypassed, that others have taken over the missionary work, mission work. I don't know if I were to ask you if you wanted to answer, but if you should predict how many or guess how big percentage of the missionaries, in the long-term international missionaries, come from Europe and North America? Anyone want to guess? Well, 30%? Yeah?
I would say 10 or 15.
10-15%? Yeah? Yeah, that's, I think these are kind of the impression we have. But if you look at the statistics, about 50% of the international missionaries come from North America and Europe. North America, the US is sending almost 1/3 of all missionaries still. So even though we have the impression that Western mission organization, Western mission churches is not important anymore, is not taking part anymore, the truth is that we are very much still taking part in the international mission movement, and we are very much needed. Of course, what we see is that the numbers of missionaries from the global south or from the old mission countries, if you could use such a term, is growing all the time. The numbers are increasing, but still it's a long time. Kind of the Western mission and Western missionaries will be needed for a long time to come, and hopefully for forever. I mean, being church means to take part in mission. So still, Western mission is overrepresented in the global mission movement. And if we look at missionaries sent and received from different continents, we will see that from 1970 till 2020, the numbers of missionaries sent from different continents has grown in every continent except from Europe. Europe is the only continent where the numbers of missionaries is going down. Also in North America, it has grown a lot since 1970. Yeah, but it also shows what we saw earlier on, that there are more that like Europe is receiving more missionaries than, for instance, than Asia, for instance. So most of the missionaries are going to areas where there are strong churches. I think we have sensed during later years, and also now at the conference in Seoul last year, that the criticism towards Western mission that we have kind of experienced for several decades, the strong criticism is diminishing, and this focus is kind of taking over. That the Western churches now has to raise up and be participants in the global mission, be proud of being Christians, and take part in the global mission force. We cannot continue kind of to focus on all the mistakes that have been done in the past. The Western mission movement, missionaries has to kind of be a strong and proud part of the global international mission movement. So Patrick Fung, who is one of the central individuals both in the Lausanne movement and in the World Evangelical Alliance, he has put it this way: rather than passing the mission baton from the Western world to the majority world church, God is adding more hands to it. We have to do this together. When it comes to the Western mission and Western mission involvement, one of the reasons why we have had this understanding that the Western mission is not playing an important part anymore is connected with the terror attack in New York in 9/11, and the following war on terror. Because with kind of the war on terror perspective was part of strong creating strong tensions in the world, the Lausanne movement had wrote an occasional paper from a conference in Pattaya in 2004, and they described this issue. I think in a good way. They said it is the lack of understanding of this within Christian circles as well as in Western democracy that has created monumental challenges for the communication of the gospel in the post-9/11 and the post-Iraq invasion by the US and its allies. America is firmly identified with Christianity, and the invasion is seen as being undertaken by Christians. There is widespread anger and revulsion with things associated with the West, and this again poses new challenges to the mission task. It raises the issue of who is the best missionary to the Islamic world. I experienced this. I lived in southeastern Ethiopia at the time at this time when the US and the other countries went into Iraq, and I experienced this strong kind of antipathy among the local Muslims. Kind of, are you American? Do you identify with this? So this polarization was very strong, and that's what was identified in this international conferences. It was emphasized that if you are American, if you are Western, going into mission in Muslim areas, it is dangerous. You bring with you kind of a luggage, and it's not a good luggage to have if you want to be a missionary. So this discussion went on in the US among missiologists in the US, and the answer from the US was, from many of the leading missiologists in the US was, let us train and send people from Latin America. They are great missionaries. We'll train them and send them as missionaries. They can go rather than Americans, than North Americans. So, as Timothy Tennant, I think, said, somebody is going to have to risk their life to bring the gospel to the Yemenites, as an example. The question is, who should it be? And the answer then from many, or from the mission movement in the US, was that, well, Western mission has outplayed its part. Let us train and send missionaries from other places, from other areas of the world. But even at that time, this was challenged because people saw that there is an ethical issue here. Is it okay? Is it okay for rich Westerners to train third world Christians and send them to do the most dangerous work and to do the work that they don't want to do themselves, to get exposed to risks that they don't want to do themselves? So it has been, that challenge has been posed, but it has never really been answered. So in international conferences, kind of the understanding that it's better to train and send missionaries from the southern part of the world has been quite strong. But again, it's always, some voices has challenged this. Is this the right way to go forth? But this is part of the reason why we have this impression that the West is bypassed, doesn't have to take part in the international mission movement anymore. And then I ask the question, is the tide turning? Do we see that this understanding that we as rich, wealthy Westerners should just train others to do mission, is that changing? Well, I've looked at the statistics for mission organizations in Norway, how they answer concerning the sending of missionaries. And a few years back, some of the big mission organizations in Norway said that we do not prioritize to send missionaries. We would rather pay local evangelists, or we will send others. It's not a priority for us to send Norwegian missionaries or to send Western missionaries. But during the last few years, this is changing again. So those organizations who said that they would not prioritize to send missionaries are moving again to say that we want to send Norwegian missionaries. That is part of what it means to be a church, to be involved in mission, to send missionaries. That is kind of our identity as a Christian church and Christian organizations. Between 40 and 50%, this statistic is now some years old, but between 40 and 50% of the organizations at that time said that they said that between 40 and 50% of their missionaries were working in areas with less than 2% Christians. So it means that the unreached is quite strongly prioritized among Norwegian mission organizations. About 70% say that they prioritized work among the unreached high or very high. And we also see that during the last couple of years that there is a growing engagement among youth in Norway for mission and mission work. And so maybe this is changing again. I don't know how this looks in Finland. To what extent the Finnish mission organizations would say the same thing. But at least this is what we see in Norway, and I would expect that it isn't very different in Finland. Yeah. Yeah, I think we've seen that. So the question was, is there shared objectives that we should do mission, that we should be involved in mission, and that the Western Church should be part of this mission movement? I think that it's possible to see that. Well, it has been some years where it has been challenged, where the Western missionaries have been wanted at all, but that is actually changing now, and it's the Western mission history is appreciated more than it was a few years back, and it's realized that Western missionaries and Western mission is needed as part of the global mission project. And then we could look into each one of these points to see kind of is mission polycentric according to this definition. But I think that would take too much time and be too big of a project for such a presentation as this. But I think that we have looked at these shared objectives, and we'll stop at that. Any questions, comments? Yep.
I think to be a missionary worker is a difficult thing. I have been working in Thailand for 7 years now, and yes, there was even in my congregation a revival with men. But when they come to Christianity and they find internet and all the preachers there and all the multitude teaching about Christianity, after 2-3 months they are totally confused because they don't know what to believe and what is the right path. So that is also one part of the pluralism, that kind of good teaching or kind of good understanding what the Christianity is. It's kind of very confusing times we are living now, I presume.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the globalization of Christianity and the internet makes the world a small place where you have access to information from all kinds of sources, and it doesn't necessarily mean that young people today will first and foremost listen to their pastor. They find other sources that they trust and listen to. But I think that's also, it could also be seen as something positive. I mean, in Norway, we meet many young people who listen to more kind of conservative preachers in the U.S. They get a different theology from what they hear in the Norwegian State Church, for instance, and they get their impulses. So it's, I mean, it's both. It's both good and bad in a way. It depends on what impulses you you choose to listen to. But you could mean that they get strong arguments that would support a theology that we would be content with as well. Yeah. Yeah.
I have been wondering. I heard somewhere that there's also a problem when if the Western missionaries bring also the liberal theology to countries where they go, and it's like it's a problem, and also that sometimes the churches, for example in Nepal, they want to cut like we don't want to this kind of missionaries, so we don't want this kind of mission. We have also here in Finland one organization that people don't want to have any contact with that mission organization because it's doing so liberal decisions. But how big how you see the situation altogether? I mean, there's like 50% Western missionaries, and how big is the issue about the liberal theology that they bring, or they with them they go? I mean, how big is the problem nowadays that
Yeah, good. I think you have a valid point, and you have some examples of this. For instance, I think the most, at least in Norway, the most known kind of situation or issue was when the Mekanesus Church in Ethiopia, which probably now is the biggest Lutheran church in the world, decided that they will not have any cooperation with the Swedish church because of the issue of same-sex marriage. So even though the Swedish church has been involved through the Swedish mission organizations doing mission in Ethiopia for a long time, the church just said that, well, with that theology, we will not have any. We don't welcome your impulses anymore. So they didn't want to cooperate or have any cooperation with the Swedish church. So that's an example where kind of the new churches represent something different from Western, more liberal theology. But I think what is important to remember is that who do mission. The hierarchical liberal churches are not very much involved in mission. They don't send missionaries. They don't, or very limitedly are they involved in mission. So what we see worldwide is that it is those who are evangelicals, those who are charismatic, Pentecostals, they are the churches who do mission. They are ethically conservative. They have a strong focus on the Bible. They're mission-minded. So they are the ones who are dominating the mission movement internationally. And of course, that also means that the new churches are very often more ethically conservative and more Bible-focused than the old churches in the West. So of course, there is a challenge with Western impulses, liberal theology that could create tension. But it's not. I think most often it's not a problem, basically because they are not very much involved in mission.
Yes, it was great to hear that. Yes.
Yeah, Soili.
Thank you. This has been hugely interesting, all of this. I would continue that from that. In Finland, we have a situation that the biggest mission movement is like the most liberal, because churches like funding it very strongly, but it doesn't send anymore that many missionaries. But they still have like possibilities to like maybe blackmail is too hard word, but push churches in Africa, for example, to do liberal theological decisions, because they can say that, okay, we give you money and this is how you should do, and if you don't do, we don't give you any money. So they have this possibility. So it's maybe a bit different with a mission from Finland, because in Norway you have NLM is the biggest one, and it has like better theology. So I just wanted to say that in Finland we have this situation. But how about, because here's also that this organization is not willing so much anymore to call itself a mission organization, but more like doing international humanitarian work. So is this a trend anywhere else in the world, or is it just here? And we also like almost stopped to send missionaries. They more like funding projects in other countries. Yeah.
I think it is a trend or at least to some extent, it's a development. Like in the academia, you would see that the term mission is particularly in the Nordic countries is not much used anymore. Basically because of the kind of the luggage, the post-colonial critical perspective, where the institutions change from mission to global Christianity, or some term that is kind of less provocative. And I think some of the organizations would call themselves diaconal organizations rather than mission organizations, for instance. But I don't know if that is a term if you think globally, or if this is a development globally. I don't think that's the case. I think more it's kind of a Scandinavian and maybe Western European development. But you could also say that of course it's right that some of the big churches and organizations use money, but that would very often they would, for instance, give scholarships to church leaders if they would go to one of the more liberal faculties. And then, well, maybe the churches or the organizations in Nordic countries will have to give them scholarships to study at Fjellhaug.
Point.
So it's kind of a competition, yeah.
About the terminology, I think in some organizations, I have the feeling that they don't want to use that missionary term because it may cause some problems in many countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you are called missionary.
Yep.
So I don't know how big percentage that is, but it's
yeah, but that definitely. I mean, even Fjellhaug itself used to be Fjellhaug Mission Seminary. And now it's Fjellhaug International University College. It's not because we don't want to be involved in mission. But for instance, for students who have their papers from Fjellhaug, it could be a problem to work in some Muslim areas if you have a diploma from a mission seminary. So that may be part of, I mean, I think that's the case. And many organizations kind of working in such areas will have to take such considerations. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah?
Yes, thank you, Frank-Ole. I'm thinking of this term, polycentric mission. There is a number of catchphrases going on in missiology. So you mentioned Missio Day there, and you have transformation was a big word sometime. You had a Trinitarian mission, and you have holistic mission, and you have mission from the margins. And maybe I have two questions. My first question is how does this polycentric mission relate to these other catch terms? And the other question is more like wondering what's going on. What is the need to qualify all the time the word mission?
What do you mean?
I mean, you don't speak of mission. You have to have mission day. You have to have Trinitarian mission. You have to have holistic mission. You have polycentric mission. What's so problematic about mission? You have to qualify it all the time. Find some other attribute that you introduce with it, or the mission from the margins. That's also you qualify. You have to. You don't want find a proper mission. So I'm just wondering about this. I'm just curious about this phenomenon that's going on here.
Yeah, I don't know if I can give you a good answer to that, but it's true. I mean, in missiology, maybe more than in other disciplines, you have all these catchphrases and kind of they're always looking for something new somehow. It needs to be phrased in a new way, in a new manner. It's kind of I don't know. Maybe it's because all these mission organizations and all the people involved in mission has to raise money all the time, and it needs to be sellable or advertisement. Yeah. But many of those phrases, as you indicate, they carry a luggage, kind of. It's because they want to make a statement that they use these phrases, and like mission from the margins, it's kind of making a statement when you talk about mission, and very often I think with the same as with polycentrism, that it carries kind of a critical aspect. A critical aspect towards what has been, bringing something new that is kind of a new. We have a new package without this past baggage, or yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that's some of the reason. I think polycentrism is. I think maybe it's less critical than many of the past or the other phrases, so to speak, and probably closest related to this from everywhere to everywhere thing, that that the whole what they want to emphasize with this term is that mission is now. It's lots of different things, and it's from everywhere. It's and it's not only preaching the gospel. It's also diaconia, and could be everything kind of. That it is multiplicity that is emphasized by using the word. somehow. Yeah. Yeah.
I was still wondering another one. Is there? Have you? Do you see that? Is there? If the America is one center to sending, is that changing? I mean because most of the money are in America, Europe.
Yeah.
They have a money to send,
Mm-hmm.
they have money to support. But another way is, I mean, there are so many good churches around the world. So because if the America is like a leading, can I say that leading?
Mm-hmm.
But because of the Christians, because of the missionaries, and yeah. But is how you see the situation?
I think numbers-wise, it's changing because many like Brazil is sending a lot of missionaries. Nigeria is growing hugely as a mission-sending country. South Korea has been growing for quite a while, even though it may have kind of the growth may have stopped now. But so I think some numbers-wise, it may be changing in the future that more missionaries will come from other places. When it comes to finances, I think the U.S. will still be very, very important. And the point is also that if you look at who defines the theology, who develops theology, it's the big institutions with lots of money and resources and good theologians. They are the ones who kind of define theology, and that's not something that you can decide that some should be defined somewhere else, kind of. So I think things will continue to be the way they have been. Mostly, I think, even though things are changing, there is a strain of continuity. But yeah. But then again, you could say, what is a center? How do you define a center? And if you say we say yes, America is a center, or North America is a center in the way that most of the missionaries come from the U.S. But there are lots of different churches, and there are lots of different organizations, and the missionaries have different theology, and they don't. It's not like North Americans are representing one kind of theology, and that's why also kind of this big phrases like the global North and the global South, West, the Western churches. I mean, it's never been the case that Western churches have kind of been acting together or sharing resources, so it's. Yeah, it shows us some trends. It's a big picture, but it doesn't mean necessarily that that U.S. as a nation or as a kind of the Christian from the U.S. define mission or the mission movement. I mean, there are lots of different actors involved from the U.S. and from Europe and from across the world. So, yeah, it's kind of I don't know if you could say that. Yeah, that's how the world works. It's kind of a huge negotiation somehow. Yeah, did that make sense?
Yes, because I was in the Pentecostal movement here. It was in Helsinki. They said that there's 700 million Pentecostals, and then there is Protestants, and then there's Catholics and Orthodox, and altogether those and how they like. All of them have their own missions.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm just thinking this Christian mission working as a young man, how they train them, because if I look the real modern days as a young man, so I think we young men are looking for some kind of strong role models. And I don't know, some conservative theologians looks like very careful and academic and those kind of that they don't maybe look for at first. They want now there is raising a trend with combat sports and that kind of some of those are very dangerous with their ethics. And I'm just thinking, are the conservative theologians very aware with that development? Because I sometimes those careful men are very gifted with their work, but I don't know, do they reach so much as they could with their working?
I'm not sure if I understood the question.
Yeah, I don't know
if there are.
I do sports a lot, and I think there is very much raising that kind of toughness image, and that kind of they're looking for strong images. And I don't know if that kind of theologian pastor can reach the view of the men that they're looking for. And I don't know if you know, for example, Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
Or
Okay. Yeah.
those kind of. But they are very dangerous and poisonous. But that's the way that there is.
Yeah.
Men.
Yeah, but yeah, sure. But I mean that's the challenge of globalization in a way. The challenge of having access to impulses and knowledge from across the world, and it's very. I mean, we have to train young people to make their own decisions, kind of to compare what are the good and bad impulses and make sound choices as much as we can. I don't think it's easy for us to do much different. Yeah.
But I think that do they understand the reality what they are looking for? Because carefulness is one big aspect of those theologians, and I don't know if that fascinates young men, that they need to strongly show their mindset that kind of. Of course, I think conservatives can do that, but liberal barely are able to do that. I don't know if you got that, but.
So, do you mean that? No, but who are you talking about? So that who is they? That if you ask that, do they reach young men?
Yeah.
Who they? Who are they? That you are talking about? So. Mikä? Niin, että kun sä kysyt, että voivatko heitä tuollaisella teologialla, kenestä sä puhut?
No siis sellaisista paljon turhaampaa sellainen ja halutaan vahvoja roolimalleja, niin sellainen ei välttämättä ne teologit osaa tarjota sellaista vahvaa roolimalleja.
Ketkä teologit?
No siis mä mietin, on siis, mitä se sanoo? No kun ne, mä saa selittää. No ajatus, no joo.
Okay.
Joo,
mutta so that do theologians like understand the thinking of young men that are looking for like a more strong leaders and like maybe even extreme kind of leaders and violent kind of people, and if theologians are like very considerable, considering and like thoughtful people. So do you mean that do they have any connection to these young guys who like look for muscles, dangerous things? So
are you talking about here, like here in Finland, or?
I don't know about other world. I don't know only Finland.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that. Yeah. But I think it's we get the leaders we want. We choose our leaders in a way. We choose our role models. and maybe it's, yeah, culture kind of decides what kind of role models are accepted. And then the strong leaders that you request, I'm not sure if the strong leaders would be accepted in kind of the Finnish culture at present. Like 50 years ago maybe, but at present it's those kind of strong leaders who will stand up and be the ones who talk or represent conservative Christianity. There may be a few, I don't know, but I think it's a cultural issue that there isn't much room for that kind of leaders anymore at present. Maybe it will change for the future, but if you are a church leader, there are other expectations from you than being kind of the one who can represent conservative Christianity on the national arena or be that role model. I don't know. I think there is a cultural issue about how a leader should be at present. We should have softer qualities, so to speak. Yeah. Okay. Should we?
Is you here and clap? But we would love to hear something about Fjellhaug.
Yeah.
And
do you need a little break, maybe, or?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Could it be like 5 minutes?
5 minutes break,
and then we continue about about Fjellhaug, and there's a possibility to have questions about this new program and
yes.
Yeah. So
very good. Thank you.
Yeah. Siis ketkä haluaa, niin.
Ja, jag vet inte om det...